I see. Well, we are 8 days out from a statewide election. A lot of focus on the governor's race. If you want to be part of the conversation, text us at 601-879-4395 on the C Spire text line. We've got on the line Frank Bordeaux, the chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party. Frank, how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. How are you doing, Lucian?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being with us.
I'm glad to be on the show. Miss Paul Gallo, but always love talking to you.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do it. I know 8 days out, I'll start by saying I know that you don't get paid to be chairman. So in addition to the full-time job of being chairman of the party in an election year, you also have a family and a job that you have to take care of. And so I appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Of course. I drove in to the office bright and early this morning and on Highway 90, the beautiful sunrise, and knew that this week was going to be a tough week, and so enjoyed a few minutes of a nice ride in. But yeah, we're ready to go. I just listened to you and Henry, and I'm not sure that I can add much to what Henry said, but I can tell you that the Mississippi Republican Party, and you know this firsthand, we're very, very fortunate to have so many people that are mobilized, that are working hard, the Republican women. We're going to pound thousands of doors today. We're making literally thousands of calls every day. And so unlike our opponent, he may have a lot of money coming in from out of state, but we have a lot of volunteers in the state of Mississippi we don't have to pay for. And so we're very, very fortunate in that way, and we are working very hard right now.
What is the closing message? I mean, as you're out there talking to volunteers, talking to the media, I mean, what's the core message coming from the GOP right now?
I mean, we're running on our record. We've done it from day one. We're going to continue to do it. As you and Henry alluded to in the previous 30 minutes, I mean, the Republican Party had a message 4 years ago. We had things we wanted to accomplish. And in the middle of major natural disasters and COVID, we were able to accomplish those goals. And so we have all of our statewide and our legislators out crisscrossing the state, reminding folks that, we said we were going to improve public education. We've done it. We said that we were going to bring capital investment in the state of Mississippi. We did it. We were going to drop the unemployment rate. We did it. We were going to have a full rainy day fund. We did it. And we didn't just do it. We did it in record numbers. And so we have to keep on our message. And as, our opponent has the communications team of Mississippi Today and the rest of the liberal media every day trying to pound on us. And so we're up against not just California Democrats or New York or Washington, D.C. Democrat money coming in, but we're up against, every single person in the media has put on their jersey, and it ain't the Republican jersey that they've put on. And so, but we are out there talking to folks. I can tell you this weekend, and I know you weren't in the Grove this weekend, but the videos and the photographs I saw, it truly looked like it was the governor's campaign headquarters. I mean, folks are energized. And as my wife and I were traveling around the coast, going to different events and meetings and parties this weekend, we felt the same way. And so a couple of weeks ago, I was afraid that there's some complacency amongst Republican voters, and there still may be. But we're seeing that they're starting to wake up and realize that, look, if we don't get out and vote, if we get out and vote and we do what we're supposed to do, the governor's going to win. If we stay at home, we're going to make it close. And so,
and that's really our greatest risk, right, Frank, that the Republicans have been so successful the last 20 years. People take it for granted, by and large, that whoever the Republican nominee is for state office, that person's going to win, and that people get busy next Tuesday and life gets in the way and somehow they don't show up and vote. I mean, that's the biggest risk, in my view, that the Republicans have right now in Mississippi.
That's right. I mean, there's not a poll that I've seen where Governor Reeves isn't going to win. The real poll is on the 7th, and that's if our folks don't do what they're supposed to do, don't show up to vote. We're all busy. We all have things going on, whether it's football or soccer or whatever it may be. But this November 7th is important. And look, if you're out of town, get out and vote. All of our federal delegation, I've spoke to them over the past few days. They're all unfortunately going to be out of town on Election Day, but they are reminding their voters or our voters across the state, if you're out of town, unfortunately, and you cannot vote in Mississippi on the 7th, go vote absentee. And so we're sending that message out. If you're an eligible voter to vote absentee, we're asking you to vote absentee.
And am I right, if you're 65 or older, you don't have to have an excuse. You can just show up at the circuit clerk's office and vote?
That's right.
Yeah, so if you want to avoid lines, if you want to make sure life doesn't get in the way, if you're eligible, just drive to your circuit clerk's office today and cast your ballot.
That's right.
Hey, Frank, you know this. Clearly that's the core function of the party in an election year is identifying our voters and making sure they show up and vote. You want to talk a little bit about what all y'all are doing these last 8 days to make that happen?
Yeah, and so, I mean, you know just as better than anybody that, over the past 3 years, we've worked to grow our party. We work every day to build our executive committees and our county clubs, and we have done that. And then in election year, we have to use those folks in the ground to help us identify voters and get out. But we're doing all the above. We're hitting them with mail, email, text messaging, knocking on their doors. So it's all the above for us. We don't have the resources of the Mississippi Democrat Party. Just like Brandon, the Democrat Party is funded by out-of-state folks. They have a lot more money, but I can tell you this, on November 8th, the Mississippi Republican Party will not have a penny. We will have spent every last bit of it on electioneering. And so we're putting our money to good use, we believe, and we're just pushing people out to vote.
Good for y'all. And you're absolutely right. If the party's not broke the day after an election, it hasn't done a very good job.
That's right.
Frank, if people want to get involved, whether it's volunteering to go door to door to make calls, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go to info@msgop.org. If they want to make phone calls, we can set them up, making phone calls. As I said, the Republican women are dialing every day. If they want to go knock doors in their community, we can get them lit to go knock doors. If they need signs, we can get them signs. And so if they want a sign wave on Election Day or if they want to poll watch on Election Day, we're doing that training as well right now, and that's going to be a very important part of what we do on Election Day. And so there's plenty of opportunity to, if you want to stay home and make phone calls, you can do that. If you want to get out in the field, you can do that as well. And so that's info@msgop.org. And we've been overwhelmed with folks that are willing to help. I will say that the RNC has folks dialing in from all over the South into Mississippi, and Tennessee sending a busload of folks down.
That's great.
To knock doors. And, and they're really reciprocating on what Mississippi did for Virginia and Georgia. And I know that you were involved in the Virginia case. We had hundreds of Mississippians calling out of Mississippi into Virginia, and we had several folks that on their own dime went out to Virginia to knock doors, and so they're just reciprocating what we did for them. And so it's a all hands on deck effort, not just in Mississippi but outside of Mississippi, to help us elect our Republicans up and down the ticket.
Frank, we've got about a minute left. Can you talk? I know people are very concerned about ballot security, making sure only the people who are eligible to vote, and that votes are counted correctly. Can you talk a little bit about what all's going on there to make sure the results are secure next Tuesday? Yeah,
so we're going to have a war room. We have a lot of very talented attorneys. Spencer Ritchie, I think, is heading up that effort for the party. So if you see anything that you believe is troublesome, you can call the state party. We'll be putting out information on social media of how to contact us on a day of the election. Obviously, the Secretary of State spoke to Secretary Watson the other day. He's going to have 50 attorneys across the state. And so all we're looking for is, like you said, free and fair elections. And so, but we are also training folks. And so if you're interested in being a poll watcher, please contact us at that same info at msgop.org.
Hey, Frank, we're coming up on a break. You got time for one more segment with us?
Yeah, of course.
Wonderful. Y'all, this is Lucian Smith in for Paul Gallo here on the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk Mississippi. Stick with us for more with Chairman Frank Bordeaux of the Mississippi. Got Frank Bordeaux, the chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party. Frank, thank you again for being with us.
I'm glad to be here.
We were coming up on a break there, but I know people are very concerned about ballot security. They want to make sure that there's not cheating. They want to make sure that only registered voters are actually voting. They want to make sure only living people are actually voting and that the votes are counted fairly. And you were starting to tell us what all the party is doing and the state is doing to make sure that's the case. You want to tell us a little more about everything going on there?
Yeah, the main thing we can do is have our folks involved in the process, and that means being at the ballot box, being at the courthouses. And so we have identified folks. We obviously need more. You can never have too many folks, but and we're training them. The RNC has been extremely helpful. The RGA has been extremely helpful in training these folks. My executive director, Tate Lewis, is doing an unbelievable job of coordinating that effort. Working with not only the governor but other statewide, and we're obviously taking that very serious. We're going to focus in on some areas that we believe we may have some issues in, and trying to identify those areas. And so, but we're also asking folks statewide. There's several counties that are doing this on their own, and we appreciate it, and we're there to help facilitate any training that we can do. To that end, I will say that our legislature has done a very good job over the past 4 years of strengthening our laws. Our secretary has worked very hard and also passed very good legislation to strengthen our laws. You'll never have the best laws, and you can never avoid 100% fraud, but we're, I think, doing as good a job as we possibly can do in that vein. And I think it's very important that we continue to work towards that.
Well, for what it's worth, I've got a specific request on the C Spire text line for you to get some poll watchers to Noxubee County this go round.
Yeah, we had poll watchers there in the last special election. Pete Perry was in Noxubee, as was myself and Tate Lewis, and so we hear you loud and clear.
Well, if you want to be part of the conversation, text us at the C Spire text line at 601-879-4395. I was talking to Henry, Frank, when my first job out of college was working on Haley Barber's campaign in 2003, and that was my election day responsibility was to poll watch in Noxubee County. And poll watching's it's a very interesting experience, and it's neat. I mean, it really, in addition to doing something very important for our democracy, it's really just fascinating to watch the actual process of people of how these elections are conducted.
That's right. And Noxubee was eye-opening. That was, I've done it down here in Harrison County as a young man in the Barber election. That was one of my responsibilities, was to be at the courthouse. And so, Noxubee Civic Center, as of last week, I have not seen the numbers today, but at Noxubee Civic Center, there's a little over 1,600 registered voters. Almost 300 people had already requested absentee ballots, and so that's an unusual number. That's an unusual percentage, and so obviously that's something we're going to take a look at. We obviously don't want to prevent somebody to have their right to vote, and we're not going to do that. But if they're voting for somebody that may be deceased, we definitely want to keep an eye on that as well.
What do you think will be the message that we'll hear both from the party and from Governor Reeves' campaign over the course of these final few days?
Look, I think our message, like I talked about earlier, is our record, and we're going to run on our record. Our opponent doesn't want to talk about our record, and I know Henry hit on that. I'm very much looking forward to the debate on Wednesday. I think the governor is going to lay out his vision for the future. He's going to talk about our successes over the past 4 years and how we can continue to build on that. I think his opponent is going to talk about issues that are non-issues that aren't true. And the one thing that I will say, and I kind of joke about it, he keeps talking about Governor Reeves planting lemon trees. I don't believe, and you know Governor Reeves as I do, I don't believe Governor Reeves ever walked out of the mansion and said, hey, man, we need to plant a lemon tree. And so that's not an issue that Mississippi voters are concerned about. We're going to talk about issues. And if he wants to bring up TANF, something that, the governor's obviously been cleared of, never been investigated of, if he wants to talk about Kemper and the legislature passing bonds that were never used, and, Brandon would have had to approve the use of those. And Brandon knows that. And so he's either didn't know what his responsibility was in his job, or he's just not telling the truth to Mississippi voters. And not one of those bonds were ever used. And so there's a lot of issues that he's hit hard on the governor, and he spent millions and millions of California dollars to hit the governor on. And I'm looking forward to the governor being able to defend himself, talk about his record, and talk about the future of Mississippi.
It should. It's going to make for great viewing and great listening. Frank, thank you for being with us. This is Lucian Smith in for Paul Gallo here on the Gallo Radio Show on Super.